She was 5 years old. She didn't know what a mafia boss was. She just knew her mama wouldn't wake up, and somebody had to help. What happened next changed both their lives forever. The radiator in apartment 4B hadn't worked in 3 weeks. Naomi Carter knew this the way she knew everything about poverty. Quietly, without complaint, the way you accept a wound that never fully heals. She pulled the thin blanket tighter around her shoulders and coughed into her fist. A deep, rattling cough. The kind that scared her more than she let on. The kitchen smelled like chicken broth and old wood. A pot simmered on the stove, her third attempt this week to eat something warm. Bills were stacked on the counter like a silent accusation. Final notice. Final notice. Final notice. She was 31 years old and felt 60. Mama, you okay? Emma stood in the doorway, clutching her stuffed elephant, Peanut, by one worn ear. She was small for 5, with big brown eyes that missed absolutely nothing. She watched her mother the way children watch things that frighten them. Steadily, quietly, pretending not to be afraid. I'm fine, baby. Naomi smiled. The smile cost her something. Emma didn't believe her, but she nodded anyway. Across the city, 42 floors up, Jin Wook stood at a floor-to-ceiling window, hands clasped behind his back, watching Seoul's rain streak the glass like broken veins. His office was cold. Deliberately cold. Emotion was a liability in his world. His phone sat on the desk. 2 separate devices. One for business. One that hadn't rung in 4 years. He was 40 years old. Powerful, untouchable, and completely devastatingly alone. His second-in-command, Ryu, entered without knocking. The Kim shipment? Handle it. Jin Wook didn't turn around. Ryu hesitated. Left. The rain fell harder. If a child's cry for help landed on your phone right now, would you answer? Drop your honest answer in the comments below. It happened at 11:47 p.m. Naomi had been standing at the stove when her legs simply gave out. No warning, no dramatic fall, just gone. Like someone cut the strings holding her upright. The pot hit the floor, broth splashed across the cracked tiles. She didn't move. Emma woke up to the sound. She padded into the kitchen in her socks, Peanut dragging behind her. She saw her mother on the floor and stopped breathing for 3 full seconds. Mama? Nothing. Mama? She knelt down, pressing both tiny hands against Naomi's shoulder, shaking with everything her 5-year-old body had. Naomi's chest was rising, barely. Her skin felt wrong, too hot, too dry. Emma stood up. She had seen her mother unlock the phone 100 times, 4 numbers. She remembered. She picked it up. She meant to call 911. She had practiced this with Naomi. If something bad happens, baby, you call this number. But Emma's fingers were shaking, and the screen blurred through her tears. She opened the wrong app. Her mother's WhatsApp. The last contact at the top had a photo. A man with a sharp face and cold eyes. Emma didn't know his name. She took a photo of her mother on the floor. She typed with one finger slowly, the way she'd learned her letters. My mama fell plus help she not waking up. She hit send. Then she called 911. 42 floors up. Jin Wook's personal phone, the one that never rang, lit up. He stared at it for a long moment. Then he picked it up. The photo made his chest do something it hadn't done in years. Something cracked behind his eyes. Jin Wook set the phone down. He walked to the window. Picked up his glass of whiskey. Set it down without drinking. It's a mistake. Wrong number, not my problem. He was a man who had ordered silence with a single nod. He had walked through burning warehouses without flinching. He had buried grief so deep inside himself it had turned to stone. He picked up the phone again. The little girl had typed another message while he stood there. She's still not moving. I scared. He exhaled slowly through his nose. Ryu appeared at the door. Boss, the Lee situation needs... Where is this number registered? Jin Wook's voice was quiet. That particular quiet that made grown men step back. Ryu blinked. Sir? Jin Wook held up the phone. Ryu took one look and pulled out his own device. His fingers moved fast. Southside, apartment building, low-income district. Ryu looked up carefully. Boss, it's just a child. Wrong number. I know what it is. Silence. Should I delete it? Jin Wook looked at the photo again. A woman, collapsed, alone. And somewhere in that apartment, a 5-year-old who had reached out into the dark and accidentally grabbed the hand of the most dangerous man in the city. He thought about another little girl, 4 years ago, a memory he kept locked in a room inside himself with no door handle. Find out if ambulance has been called. His voice didn't waver. Ryu stared. Jin, now Ryu. Ryu left fast. Jin Wook didn't move from the window. The phone stayed in his hand. He told himself he was simply gathering information. He was lying to himself. And some quiet, buried part of him knew it. The ambulance had come. Jin Wook knew this because Ryu had contacts in every emergency dispatch in the city. Naomi Carter, 31, single mother, acute pneumonia complicated by untreated infection, admitted to St. Mercy General. He also knew, because Ryu was thorough, that there was no one to collect the child. No father listed, no emergency contact answered. A neighbor had taken Emma temporarily but was already calling social services. Jin Wook sat in the back of his car outside the hospital for 11 minutes before he got out. He told himself this was just information management, a loose end. The wrong number situation required resolution, so it couldn't be traced back to him. That was all. The hospital lobby smelled like antiseptic and old coffee. Jin Wook wore no tie tonight, just a dark coat. He looked like a dangerous man trying to look ordinary. He mostly failed. He found Emma sitting in a plastic chair outside the pediatric waiting area, still holding Peanut. Her socks had elephants on them. Her eyes were red and swollen, and when she looked up at him, she didn't look afraid. She looked like she had been waiting. You came, she said simply. Jin Wook stopped walking. Something about those two words hit him somewhere unguarded. You sent me a message, he said carefully. Emma nodded. I didn't know who you was, but you had a nice face in the picture. She paused. You look different for real, though, more scary. Despite everything, something almost moved across Jin Wook's face. When he sat down in the plastic chair beside her, they sat in silence. The fluorescent lights hummed. Emma leaned slightly, just slightly toward him. He didn't move away. Is your mama going to be okay? She asked. I don't know, he said. He would not lie to a child. Emma considered this seriously. Then she held out Peanut. You can hold him. He helps. They wouldn't let Emma see Naomi until morning. Jin Wook should have left 3 hours ago. He was still there. Emma had fallen asleep against his arm, Peanut squashed between them. Jin Wook sat completely still, afraid that moving would wake her. He couldn't explain why that mattered to him. His phone buzzed silently. 7 messages from Ryu. 2 from his lieutenants. 1 from a senator whose campaign he quietly funded. He ignored all of them. Then he looked down at the child sleeping against him. She had one braid loose, the barrette hanging by a thread. Her breathing was slow and even, the way children breathe when they feel safe. Completely without reservation. She trusts too easily, he thought. Then, she trusted the right person. He didn't know where that thought came from. Ryu appeared at the end of the corridor, eyes wide with carefully controlled disbelief. Jin Wook gave him a single look. Ryu retreated. Sometime around 3 a.m., Emma stirred. My mama used to have a friend, she murmured, half asleep. She said he was kind before he got lost. Jin Wook frowned. What happened to him? Mama said the world made him hard. Emma yawned. She said that happens to people when nobody loves them right. The silence that followed was enormous. Jin Wook stared at the wall. 4 years ago. A wife who left because she said loving him was like loving a locked door. A daughter, 3 years old, who had pressed her small palm against his cheek the morning they left, as if she was memorizing him. He had let them go. He had told himself it was safer. For them. He had been telling himself that ever since. Emma was fully asleep again. Jin Wook exhaled. Slow, ragged, the sound a man makes when something he buried shifts in the earth. Have you ever pushed someone away thinking it would protect them? Tell us in the comments. And if this story is getting to you, make sure you subscribe so you never miss what happens next. Morning arrived gray and soft. The doctor said Naomi was stable. Serious, but stable. She would need 2 weeks of hospital care, medication she couldn't afford, rest she never allowed herself. When Emma was finally allowed into the room, she ran to her mother's bedside and grabbed her hand with both of hers and simply held on. She didn't cry. She was done crying. She just held on. Jin Wook stood at the doorway. Naomi's eyes opened slowly. They found Emma first. Relief, love, the fierce, desperate love of a mother who almost wasn't there. Then her eyes moved to the doorway. She stared at Jin Wook for a long moment. Who are you? Her voice was hoarse, stripped down. Nobody important, he said. Emma looked up. He's the man I texted by mistake, Mama. He came. Naomi's expression moved through several things quickly. Confusion, alarm. Something that might have been wonder. You came, she said. An echo of Emma's words. An accident. It landed the same way. She needed someone. His voice was flat, but he didn't leave. Over the following days, Jin Wook told himself each visit would be the last. He sent Ryu ahead with food. Real food, not hospital food. And told himself it was just logistics. He brought Emma crayons because she mentioned once that she liked drawing. He told himself it was just to keep her quiet. Emma drew a picture of 3 people. One small, one tall with long hair, one very tall with a serious face. She handed it to Jin Wook. That's our family, she announced. Naomi made a sound from the bed. Jin Wook looked at the drawing for a long time. Something in his chest pulled like a thread being drawn through a needle. You put me in the wrong picture, he said quietly. Emma tilted her head. Did I? He didn't answer. He folded the drawing carefully and put it in his coat pocket. It was Ryu who broke it. Not out of malice. Out of loyalty. He laid the file on Naomi's hospital table while Jin Wook was getting coffee. Photos, documents, a printed record of exactly who Jin Wook was. Every name, every operation, every verdict that had never seen a courtroom. Naomi read it with her IV still in her arm. When Jin Wook returned, she looked at him the way people look at things they should have seen coming. Get out. He stopped. Naomi. I said get out of this room. Her voice was shaking, but it wasn't weak. You're Mafia. You run drugs, weapons, people... She stopped, pressed her lips together. My daughter texted you. My 5-year-old child accidentally texted a crime lord, and you've been sitting in this room with her like it's normal. Nothing happened to her. Because I'm telling you it won't. She sat up straighter despite the pain. I have fought too hard to keep her safe. I have been sick and broke and alone, and I did not survive all of that to let someone like you near my child. The room was very quiet. Emma stood in the corner, holding Peanut, her eyes moving between them, understanding more than anyone gave her credit for. Jin Wook looked at Naomi, then at Emma. He set the coffee cup down on the table slowly, carefully, the way you set something down when your hands are less steady than you want them to be. You're right, he said. He walked out. Emma's voice followed him into the hallway, small, devastated. Mr. Jin? He kept walking, the elevator doors closed. He stared at his own reflection in the steel, cold, distant, exactly who Naomi said he was. He told himself this was the correct ending. He almost believed it. 3 days of silence. Jin Wook worked. He took meetings. He made decisions that moved money and men across the city like chess pieces. He was efficient, precise, untouchable. He didn't take out Emma's drawing. He didn't need to. He could see it without looking. The 3 crayon figures, uneven and bright. The word family written underneath in 5-year-old spelling. Ryu watched him carefully, said nothing for 2 days. On the 3rd day, he said, "The Carter woman is being discharged tomorrow. She has nowhere to go." "Her apartment?" He paused. "The landlord evicted her while she was in hospital. Apparently there were 3 months of unpaid—" "I know," Jinwook said. Ryu blinked. "You know? I've been watching the situation." Another pause. Carefully. "And?" Jinwook was silent for a long time. Outside the city moved. Indifferent, loud, relentless. He thought about his daughter. The way her palm had felt against his cheek the morning she left. He had spent 4 years telling himself that letting go was love, that staying away was protection. Emma had reached into the dark with a misspelled message and no fear, and pulled him back to something he had forgotten he was. He opened his desk drawer. The drawing was there. He hadn't been able to throw it away. He picked up his phone. Not the business phone. The other one. He typed slowly. He was not a man who typed slowly. He made himself do it anyway. "I know I have no right to ask, but she mentioned you liked the library on 5th. I have a place, safe, clean, no strings. Emma should not lose her home because I walked in and complicated things. That's my responsibility." He stared at it for a long time. He sent it. Then he sat very still, waiting. The most vulnerable he had felt in 4 years. Naomi read the message 4 times. She sat in the hospital bed in her discharge clothes. Jeans, a sweater Emma had picked out, her natural hair finally free, and she read it 4 times. She thought about every wrong decision she had ever made in the name of survival. She thought about how easy it was to confuse danger with strength, to confuse gentleness with weakness. She thought about the way Jinwook had sat in a plastic hospital chair all night for a child he didn't know. She thought about Emma's drawing. Family, she called him. He picked up before the 2nd ring. Neither of them spoke for a moment. "I looked you up myself," Naomi said. "Before Ryu left that file, I already knew." A pause. "Then why?" "Because knowing what someone is and knowing who someone is are 2 different things." She exhaled. "I was scared. I'm still scared. But Emma asked me this morning why the world makes people hard." She paused. "She's 5. She shouldn't know that question yet." "She's extraordinary," Jinwook said quietly. "I know." A long breath. "I'm not saying yes to whatever this is. I'm saying, don't disappear on her. She chose you for some reason that I can't explain and probably shouldn't fight." When they arrived at the address Jinwook sent, a clean, warm apartment on a quiet street, nothing extravagant, nothing cold, Emma walked through the door and turned around with her arms spread wide. "Mama, it even smells nice," Naomi laughed. A real laugh. The first in a long time. Jinwook stood in the doorway. He hadn't come inside. Yeah, he wasn't sure he was allowed. Emma marched over and grabbed his hand with both of hers, tugging. "You're supposed to come in," she said firmly. "You're in the picture." He looked at Naomi over Emma's head. Naomi held his gaze for a long moment. Then she stepped aside. He came in. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't simple. There were long roads ahead, his world, her reality, the distance between who he had been and who Emma had somehow decided he already was. But the door was open, and for the first time in 4 years, Jinwook didn't want to close it. Emma reached into the dark with nothing but love and changed 2 lives forever. Have you ever been saved by someone unexpected? Share your story in the comments below. We read every single one. And if this story moved you, please subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a story from this channel. Your support means everything.